Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Room Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 18. I'm your host, Joe Baress, and we're actually not joined by Joby Fawcett this time around. We are joined by my colleague and friend, Scott Walsh. Scotty, how we doing?
Good, Joe. My pleasure to be here with you this week.
Absolutely. Glad to have you, my friend. And we're going to kick off the show as we always do with our Athlete of the Week interview. This week it is Ayden Blaut of Wallenpaupack Wrestling. Ayden, how we doing, man?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks for coming aboard. Just to let people know what Ayden did last week, he won the 127-pound title at the Lackawanna League Championships on Saturday. One of his victories came over number 1 seed West Scranton's Connor Laguerre, who was ranked 13th in the state, according to PA Power Wrestling, by a 6-5 decision in the semifinals. He also had 2 first-period pins and a technical fall in the tournament. Earlier in the week on Wednesday, he had a first-period pin in Wallenpaupack's 43-23 win over West Scranton to open the Lackawanna League Division I season. Obviously, Ayden, I've been interviewing you every day these last few days. So I'm going to start off here. Last year you were part of a team that made school history. First Lackawanna League Division I title, first District 2 duals title. You add another individual team title at the individual districts. Tell me about what was last year like for you being a part of a team that made school history?
It was great. A big thing about having the team last year and the team this year is that I have to lead the team. I'm not just another part of the team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about that role for you. What is it like? What is it like being a leader, and do you like it?
It was a big jump. In the beginning of the season, we really struggled to have some leadership in the room, but Crush had a good talk with us. We got it done.
Absolutely.
We had a couple guys step up, and yeah,
no,
we're
absolutely.
in a pretty good position now.
Oh, definitely. Tell me a little bit about, obviously it took a little bit for you guys to get to the top in a very difficult, Division I and a very difficult Class 3A. Tell me a little bit about what it took to get to this point where now you're defending champions.
Yeah, it took a lot of hard work in the room. A lot of hard practices. Out of season, a lot of us wrestle year round. So we're also getting on the mat, wrestling off-season tournaments, competing as much as we can. It really starts before season when you're trying to build a good team. You have to make sure everyone's working. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, getting to you individually, you came out this year, you're on fire. You've had obviously that really nice win at the Lackawanna League Championships. Last year, I believe you had a bronze at districts and, didn't place at regionals, but, what did you kind of learn from last year that you took into this year?
Last year, going into districts, I saw the brackets. I saw as the 2 seed, I saw it as hard semis. So I was kind of nervous. I was in my head. I wasn't really mentally prepared for the match. And then I got out there. I thought I was just going to steamroll over. As like, I'm just going to win. It's all right. And then obviously things happen. Doesn't work this year. I've taken a lot of control over my mental on the mat. It helps me perform better. I feel like when I'm more in control than rather overthinking, not being prepared.
Absolutely. Scotty, what do you got?
Ayden, how many years have you been wrestling? How'd you kind of get started? What pointed you in that direction, for that sport? And, obviously what are some of the things that maybe you really like about the sport?
So I started off wrestling my 3rd grade year at Wallenpaupack. And from the start, I've always wrestled with the school, but when I got to 7th grade, I started wrestling out of school with some clubs, and I really started enjoying it. I started traveling to wrestle, going to Virginia Beach, New Jersey, all over, big tournaments, and I fell in love with it. And then what I really love about the sport is that it's what you put in, you'll get out.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Had wrestling been in your family? Like, did you have your dad wrestle, or brothers, relatives, anybody like that wrestled? What made you go out for it in third grade?
So my biological dad is actually a basketball player, so you might not expect that out of me. But my stepfather was a wrestler. He wrestled at DB when he was younger, so he really encouraged me to try it out, and I just never stopped.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, Ayden, you said used to play football too, right?
Yeah.
What kind of made you focus on wrestling? Obviously, those are two sports that kind of go hand in hand, but
Yeah.
what made you kind of focus on wrestling?
So when I was freshman year of football, I was competing. I was going lifting every day with them, going to the 2 days, all that. But I wasn't really fit for the sport. So I ended up just making the decision to wrestle full time, wrestle year round.
Absolutely. Obviously, you got a lot of great teammates. Is there a teammate that has impressed you? I know it's early. Is there a teammate that has impressed you the most this season so far with what they've put in, maybe in the off season and early in this season?
Yeah, no, I have two teammates I've been wrestling with, Gabe Caulfield and Giovanni Lamonaco. We went down to Iron Horse Wrestling Club in Newton, New Jersey, and we wrestled there the whole entire summer together. We competed with their teams down at schools, and they've really been with me through it all.
Absolutely. So how about, talk a little bit about yourself, and, obviously wrestlers have different styles. What kind of a wrestler are you? How would you describe your wrestling style?
I like to stay out of the tie up. I like to come out of distance, get to an ankle. I don't like to get underneath my opponents. So
I hear you.
I'm more of an outside outside of the box guy. I like to scramble.
Absolutely. You also, you talk about how much you've learned in wrestling as as you've gotten to this point, and now obviously you're a senior leader for this team. What advice would you give someone either starting out in wrestling or looking to improve in the sport?
Honestly, just let it fly. I mean, whatever's going to happen on the mat's going to happen. There's going to be one winner, and it's not really important what happens early on. You should just focus on getting on the mat and getting better, getting as much mat time as possible.
Absolutely.
Ayden, you mentioned just a moment ago that you went and competed in New Jersey and with some things during the off season. How does wrestling in Jersey compare to Pennsylvania?
Honestly, I didn't really notice that big of a difference. It's just still wrestling, but I got on with some of the best kids in New Jersey. Got on the mat with them. They were awesome, very skilled. Got me a lot better.
I guess no matter where it is, if you're wrestling better competition, it's gonna make you better no matter what.
Yeah, as long as you're getting on the mat, giving it your best, you're gonna get better in some way.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Jersey, I noticed from your bio one of your favorite teams is the New York Giants. Talk a little bit about their season, and what do you think? And as someone who is a diehard Jets fan, I can kind of sympathize with the dumpster file that is New York NFL football this season. So,
yeah, we had a couple tough injuries, but I feel like next season we're going to be better. We're going to have Neighbors back. Cam's going to be back. We'll get the first round draft pick.
I was going to say, just get that draft pick.
As long as we get that draft pick, we should be pretty good.
What do you think of Jackson Dart?
I love him. I love his play style.
Absolutely. You love his style, but I mean, are you worried that he's maybe a little too reckless? Takes a few too many
he is pretty
hits
reckless.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can keep him on the field.
Yeah.
Now, he has the mentality of a wrestler, actually.
Yeah.
Now, if you get that number one pick, and you're probably not going to take a quarterback since you like Dart. Are you going to trade it to the Jets so we can get a quarterback? Or
Yeah.
No way. No, come on.
what? The Jets are sitting on a bunch of first round picks. I'm sure the Giants would like to take a couple of those picks.
Yeah.
Man, listen, I'm a Packer fan. I don't know what you guys go through. So, hey, Ayden, we're obviously coming up on Christmas. What are your Christmas plans?
Spend some time with the family. Eat some food. Not too much, but keep it under control.
I was going to say, yeah. Do you have to stay away from certain things? I know you get that, 2-pound allowance, but do you have to kind of stay away from any food you like?
Yeah, the 2-pound allowance definitely helps, but I still got to keep it under control, or it's going to be a harder cut down than it usually is.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't. Usually when Joby's on the show, he loves to ask every single wrestler if they have seen the movie Vision Quest. And I'm sorry, I haven't spared you from it. Have you seen the movie Vision Quest?
I have not, no.
Okay, all right. Well, as an assignment, I guess Joby usually says watch Vision Quest and get back to us. So that'll be a little holiday homework for you. Go watch
definitely reach out.
It's the obligatory Athlete of the Week question asked of all wrestlers. So.
All right.
Exactly. So, all right, Ayden, Scott, you got anything else for Ayden?
No, I'm good. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Ayden, you've had a great start to the season, man. Keep it going. Congrats on getting this Athlete of the Week, and good luck the rest of the season. And thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Take care, bud.
You too.
All right. So that was Ayden Blaut of Wallenpaupack Wrestling. Scotty L. I'll tell you, Ayden's been good his entire career, posting 30-win seasons. But yeah, I'll tell you what, you could tell the work that he has put in this offseason. He looked great at the Lackawanna League Championships, and that Wallenpaupack team, they lost some key guys from last year, but they still look very, very good. Actually got a chance to see them face off against West Scranton on Wednesday as the Lackawanna League season opened. And, West Scranton's kind of a team too that has some very strong wrestlers, but, they're trying to get into a groove, fill some weights, get better at some weights, and, still a good team. And Wallenpaupack went in there and took care of business as they tried to, get back on top in Division I and also hopefully reclaim a District 2 Class 3A duals title. So, another wrestler from Wallenpaupack who had a really nice Lackawanna League Championships was Tristan Braxton, who's, talking to him after. He's really looking to accomplish, have a big year. He called it a redemption year. He struggled with injuries last season, and yeah, he's really looking to have a nice year. It's a great start at the Lackawanna League Championships, rolling to a title. If I could talk a little further on the Lackawanna League Championships, Honesdale has been a very, very good wrestling team of late, and that's going to continue this year. They won their second straight Lackawanna League title. They had to replace a few like every team usually does, but they retained some great talent in Nathan Schumann, state qualifier last year and regional champ, Duke Martin, a state qualifier as well. Levi Landry won his second straight Lackawanna League title. Bobby McDowell, the heavyweight, returns after suffering an injury at the Lackawanna League Championships last year and was done for the season. So he had a nice start winning a Lackawanna League title. And they added Nathan's brother, Dominic Schumann, who looked great at the Lackawanna League Championships. He's in a great start to the season, capturing a Darren Klingerman Invitational title. So Honesdale looks good. They had a big day on Saturday. Some other wrestlers, Tommy Schechterly from West Scranton. This is the first time we've gotten to see him in high school, and he had some nice wins. A little deja vu on Wednesday and Saturday, facing Gabe Caulfield in the dual meet on Wednesday, and facing Gabe Caulfield in the title match at 172 pounds. Both state-ranked wrestlers. Schechterly's at 18, Caulfield's at 25. We also have Mason Whitney of Abington Heights, two-time state medalist, returning. He's only a junior. He captured his third straight Lackawanna League title. No surprise there. Be excited to see what he does this season. And he's stepping into more of a leadership role now with that young Abington team. And speaking of, Dakota Sandy put on a hell of a performance at the Lackawanna League Championships. Freshman dominated his bracket at 121. It should be interesting. Abington should be a good team. It should be a good battle in that Division I. We also had Scranton's Drew Leonori, who really steps up in this league meet. He's got 3 titles, capturing the 133 crown on Saturday with a pin of Gio Lamonaco, who Ayden actually mentioned. Excellent wrestler from Paupack. So that's a big-time win for Leonori, especially since he lost to Gio twice last season, including at districts. Another name that we know very well, Matthew Almedina, 3-time state qualifier, wins his second Lackawanna League title, and he has been 1 win short of a state medal as a freshman, sophomore, and junior. So he's coming to get that state medal this year. Scotty, I did something dumb in my interview with him. I kind of got jumbled, and I was just like, how's it feel to be a 4-time Lackawanna League champion? He's only won it twice.
Well, it's not, it's easy to, when you're, it's one thing when you're dealing with, team A and team B,
right,
covering something, and but when you're dealing with, I have this with cross country all the time too, when you're dealing with different weight classes and different, and different classifications, and, so many kids, it's easy just to get them mixed up and jumbled and everything like that. So, so don't be too hard on yourself. So,
I appreciate that. No, I know I was gonna bring that up. You're usually in similar situations where I'm sure across country you've got, a race going on, and then you've got to get the people you need and quickly get to, back to the finish line to get, the next group of people, as there's like 6 races, or
there's a medal ceremony going on while a race is happening. So,
exactly.
You're trying to talk to the kids who, get the kids who won medals and did well. And like you said, get back to the finish line and everything. So it's easy to jumble stuff and everything like that,
Exactly. So. And how it works here is, and I appreciate it, Chris Ross does a wonderful job running this. And he, they used to kind of stop after a couple finals and do some medal ceremonies and continue the finals. He just rolled right through, which was fantastic, which helps us with our early deadlines.
Yeah.
But so at the end, obviously it's like they just do the medal ceremony. So you're kind of I'm like standing off to the side, and it's just kind of like a line of, like, once they're done, they just come to me. So it's like you're doing, like, 12, 13 interviews in the span of a very short time. So, but I digress. The one thing that I want to say is I appreciate Matthew not shoving it in my face that I got it wrong, and he just simply answered the question. So, but I apologize. I do know now. I do know that he's won it twice, and I believe the last person, I hope I didn't miss anyone, is Valley View's Tywin Giles. Obviously, I wrote a feature about him for the Lackawanna League season preview. He remained undefeated. He looks great on the mat at 152 pounds. Just very, very fast, quick feet on the mat. You could tell that he put in the work and in the off season as well. So that was your Lackawanna League Championships. It's usually it's a nice tournament. I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything. That's inaccurate, but it's early in the season. It's before Christmas. and it kind of gives you it's a nice tournament. It's fun to cover, and it kind of gives wrestlers a gauge of where they are, and where they need to be by season's end. So it's a nice little tournament to cover.
Yeah, it is kind of odd that you have your championships
Right.
at the start of the season, but like you said, I think it kind of sets up the league, the league season nicely to kind of know, okay, who's who's back and is going to be a threat again,
Right.
who might be a bit of a surprise, who might be somebody to keep an eye on, keep a wire, or or what you need to do, between now and in the the little time there's during the holiday, heading into the, when the when league meet matches start, kicking up again, what you have to do to maybe get better and everything. So it's a good way to, it's a good gauge for the wrestlers and for the teams to see where they stand and, what they have to do to continue to be successful.
You hit the nail on the head, Scotty, and that's what kind of makes it. That's what kind of makes it different. That's what makes it enjoyable. It's just and you're also looking at kids who are they're wrestling. Some are wrestling a little up in weight because it's early
Yeah.
in the season, so you're getting kind of some different matchups, some different looks as well. So, but yeah, we'll roll on to the rest of the league season after Christmas. You know how it goes, Scotty. I'm sure districts will be here before you know it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It flies by,
Exactly.
it just, it's gonna, it's gonna be here, just when you start getting settled in for the regular season, it's like, boom, the regular season's over, and then districts come, and then, and then you just finish up, winter sports season, and then the spring season sports will be here and everything. It's just a vicious cycle that just keeps going and going.
Exactly. I want to talk a little bit about, before we get off wrestling, the Battle of the Valley Belt happened on Friday, Scotty, a nice little event that Mid-Valley and Valley View have created, and both those matches have come down to the wire. This time, Mid-Valley won the belt with Devon Hill's pin to seal the win. A very cool event that added girls this year because Valley View now has a team. So that's very cool as well. Speaking of girls, the Hanover Holiday Classic has really grown. It's now 32 teams, which is really great for the sport. That's a big tournament. A tournament that's so big, it's probably going to move to 2 days now, which is pretty cool. Locally, some Lackawanna Leaguers, Hayden Manning won a title of Abington Heights. That's another school that just added a girls team, and Hayden's a freshman, and she's excellent. The other two names we've heard of, Kate Pryor, last week's Athlete of the Week, wins another title here, and Madison Miller of Honesdale, only a sophomore, she wins a title, just has already put together a fantastic career. So be very excited to see what she brings to the table for the rest of this season, the rest of her career. Scotty, girls wrestling, it continues to grow and grow. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you brought up how the Hanover Area Holiday Classic has expanded to the point where they're probably going to go to 2 days, and that's just a reflection of how girls wrestling is growing. And more as more and more more and more schools maybe get involved. Like a Valley View.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they, doing a team. Doing a team this year. It's just more. There's more and more interest. The younger girls are going to see these girls that are doing it now, kind of leading the way, blazing the trail a little bit. And, as girls say, hey, I want to do that. I want to give that a try. And then, by the time they're in high school now, they're out there on the mat, and, and you're able to have a 2-day holiday classic at Hanover Area and everything. So it's great that the sport is kind of, it continues, or the girls wrestling is kind of continued to grow.
Absolutely. It's like you said, they see these girls win, they see their friends winning, and they see what the sport, brings them, and the importance of, sports in general. So like you said, absolutely great to see. But Scotty, I wasn't the only one working last week. You were hard at work, and you saw a couple basketball games, on the girls and the boys side. Let's Let's start with the girls basketball game. The league openers started. The league started last Thursday in girls. You saw the Scranton North Pocono game. Any takeaways from that?
Yeah, just that Lackawanna Division I this year is going to be a war. It's it was a real close game between North Pocono and Scranton. Division I, obviously you've got Scranton Prep, with even though they graduated all five of their starters last season, all five, those five seniors. The players that are moving up, and moving into the starting lineup, they saw a ton of action last year.
Yeah.
This isn't a whole new fresh team that has taken the court for the first time. These were players, like Eva Kashuba and Chloe Romero coming in off the bench. Okay. At points last season, and now they're just stepping into the starting lineup. Scranton Prep's going to be good. Abington Heights has got, three starters back. North Pocono's got four starters back. Valley View's got three starters back. Scranton's got three starters back. So it's going to be a battle, every night in that division. Another team, kind of keep an eye on in that division is Delaware Valley. Delaware Valley's off to a 5-1 start and everything. And, and talking with, one of the coaches who's happened to see them on film or a video of their opener against Prep, even though they lost to Prep, that coach came away, was impressed, and said, the Delaware Valley's coach, Michaela Smith, he said she's got them playing for her, playing hard and giving effort, and that's going to win games. So no surprise that this game was a battle. It was a tight game going into the fourth quarter, 2-point game. Scranton tied it up early in the fourth, and then the Clementoni sisters, just took charge. 4 straight possessions. Coach Joe Ferguson was calling out the same exact play, and all 4 times it worked. It was Clementoni feeding her for Sister Anna for a basket inside, and credit to Anna. They were contested shots. It wasn't like they were, she was wide open or anything like that. Scranton played hard, played good defense, but that was the difference in the game right there. Those 4 straight possessions, that they scored, and that little 8-0 run put them ahead. So that was the takeaway I kind of took from that game, that it's going to be, Division I is going to be a battle every single night. Probably not going to, Prep won it last year, going undefeated in the division. I don't think you're going to see a team go undefeated in Division I this year. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Scotty, it's all about execution. I know and those Clementoni sisters, obviously came through in the clutch. If you don't mind, you saw, obviously you said you kind of saw some improvement of Anna Clementoni. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, just again, last year she was a freshman, and I saw them once or twice last year, and you could tell that she was she was a good player, nice inside player with some size and everything, maybe, but freshman, a little awkward with the footwork and things, things like that. They come out, the other night, and first possession, they feed her the ball inside, and she makes a strong power move to the basket, lays it in, and everything like that. And it's like, whoa! You can tell she put in the work over the course of the off season. AAU, playing AAU basketball, playing whatever she did during the summer. So she clearly has improved, and if she winds up, I think she's about 5'10", maybe 5'11". I don't know if she's got another growth spurt in her left or whatever, but if she gets a little taller, she's gonna be with the rest of the season and the next 2 more years, she's gonna be a force inside. So I definitely was impressed with I could definitely see she made some strides, she made some improvements from last year.
Absolutely, Scotty. I'm still waiting for the growth spurt, man.
So am I, Joe, and it's never, I'm starting to think now it's not going to happen.
I was going to say, I don't think I'm going to make it to the NBA. I just don't, but I tried. So I do want to go over, we did have some great performances. Obviously, Scotty, we went through it all late Saturday night, coming together with Athlete of the Week candidates. One of the performances that stuck out is obviously, we're all familiar with her name, Addison Kilmer, our female Athlete of the Year last year of Mountain View basketball. She had 61 points in 2 games, 21 points in a 54-41 loss to Delaware Valley, who you spoke about, and she had 40 points in a 67-32 win over Blue Ridge. Obviously, Scotty, I love to make this joke all the time, but she scored more points in 2 games than I scored in my entire basketball career. So, but yeah, so obviously, she's going to have plenty more performances like that this season. But at the moment, no, go ahead.
It's going to be par for the course with Addison Kilmer.
I was going to say
that's you can pretty much maybe she won't go out and score 40 every night, but she's certainly capable of scoring 40. But you're going to constantly see that consistent play out of her and everything. So
absolutely. And let me just go over the top 10 right now. Our Times-Tribune top 10 came out today. We are recording this on Monday evening. It is presently 6:45. So the Abington Heights is at number 1. Dunmore and Scranton Prep are at number 2. North Pocono fell to 4. Valley View's at 5. Delaware Valley at 6. Mountain View 7. Honesdale 8. Riverside 9. And Wallenpaupack 10. So anything else on girls basketball at the moment, Scotty, before we move on?
No, just, you had a couple other performances too. Cora Castellani from Valley View had 39 points and 2 wins last week. Sadie Jones from Montrose had 45 points and a couple of wins for Montrose. Dunmore girls won 3 games last week, to stay unbeaten and everything. So, it's starting to we're starting to heat up as we head into the holidays and holiday tournaments and things like that. So, but it's a lot of good players that are back from last year in the girls, and it's going to be an interesting season after the holiday tournaments.
Absolutely.
So, Joe, one thing I do want to point out, just going back to that North Pocono Scranton game, Scranton, they have played such a daunting schedule to start the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. They're 1-6. Okay. But if in their 6 losses, they've lost to teams that are a combined 36-5.
Wow.
So they're playing, they Crestwood is undefeated. Dallas is undefeated. Hazleton area is 6-1. They played, North Pocono is 5-2. They played a couple of tournaments. St. Thomas Aquinas out of New Jersey is 5-1. William Penn down at York, who they lost to, by 2 points on Saturday down at a showcase down at Cardinal O'Hara High School. They're 3-1. So you look at Scranton's record and say, wow, 1-6 or whatever. This schedule is gonna help them, is gonna benefit them. I think down towards the end of the season. They've played a really, really challenging schedule to start the year.
Kind of similar to obviously Joby and I have talked about this a lot during the football season, where you get Delaware Valley starting off their first 3 or 4 games. They some big time non-conference opponents, and same with Scranton Prep this year. And like you said, it only helps for down the road.
I think you're going to you're starting to see a lot more teams, do that more and more.
Yeah.
Even in all sports, I think even in baseball, some of our teams might be going out of the area, and facing some better pitchers, facing some better teams, and they might take a loss, but facing that competition is going to only make them, better down the road. And, I think you're seeing more and more teams starting to adopt that mentality.
And especially of how, look at, obviously you're always looking to win a state title, but look at our teams so far, this year and let alone last year. Last year Valley View winning a state softball title. You roll into this year like we talked about the last time you were on this podcast. I mean, Abington Heights soccer winning a state title. It's we had seven state titles, whether it was individual or team or something along those lines, just in the fall alone, which, as we had mentioned, is insane. But that's, I think that if they hadn't already, these programs across all sports are realizing, we could absolutely be competing for state titles, every year And, this is going to be another year because, you witnessed it firsthand with basketball last year.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, they were, they're, that playing that better competition. When
Yeah.
you show up for a state game, you're not, it's not a shock, when you're
Right.
playing, when you play a team that's, that maybe plays in a faster tempo, or, where you're facing that pitcher who throws 90 something miles an hour, or that softball pitcher who's, throwing it at 60 or 70 miles an hour, or whatever, however fast they throw. It's not a shock to the system. It's it's like, okay, hey, we've seen this before. We're a little comfortable with it and everything. It's, and I guess, people look at wins and losses, and you say, like a team like Delaware Valley, in football, for years, Keith Olsemer has done that, and they might go 0-3, 0-4 to start the season,
Yeah.
but would you rather be 0-4 and play that top-notch competition and have you help you during the year, or go 4-0 and beat teams by 40, 50 points in those 4 wins? And then, when it comes playoff time, not be as sharp or prepared, to face that, that higher level of competition, So
Right.
it's, I mean, I guess there's probably an argument to be made either way.
Sure.
But, I think, like I said, I think you're starting to see more and more, people, yeah, oh boy, Scranton, boy, they're having a horrible season, 1-6. Yeah, but look at who they're playing, and they're
Right.
not having a horrible season. They're playing top notch competition, and it's going to be better for them down the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scotty, it's not like it's they're avoiding that beginning of the state final in Hoosiers moment where they go down by like 15, Well, maybe we don't belong here. So let's talk a little bit about boys basketball. First of all, congratulations to Tony Battaglia getting his 400th career victory. He was coaching Scranton when I was playing at Holy Cross, and that was, 17 years ago now. But yeah, so congratulations to him. I think it's really cool that his son propelled the team to victory and to get him his 400th win with 28 points. So that's pretty cool for him. And Scotty, you covered one of the big time games. Obviously, a packed house at Riverside as they hosted my alma mater, Holy Cross, the first of probably many tilts between these teams.
Yeah, they met twice. They met 4 times last year. Split the four meetings, and this was, the first game to open up division play. And, as you mentioned, yeah, Riverside was jammed. Had to make sure, got there early, make sure I was there like an hour before. I was there an hour before the scheduled start of the game, and the parking lot was still jammed, and the gym was still packed. And, eventually they made the announcement that, hey, we're at capacity. We're locking the doors, not letting anybody else in. And if you leave, you're not getting back in. It wasn't one of these, we're handing you a ticket and, to go out and go outside and then come back in or something like
We're
that.
stamping your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No hand stamps, that kind of stuff. But it was, it was a good atmosphere. And, it, Holy Cross, Coach Al Calais Jr. said this after the game. He doesn't want to use it as an excuse, but Holy Cross is a little bit banged up. They are missing a couple of starters, and you would like to see those two teams play each other at full strength and everything.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to use. He wouldn't use that as an excuse. For Riverside winning the game. 64-46. It was a close game at halftime. It was only 21-17. Riverside was up. And actually, what had happened was Holy Cross scored 10 straight points to take a 17-16 lead and force Riverside to call timeout with about 4 minutes left in the second quarter. And then Riverside kind of amped up its defense a little bit over the rest of the half. Holy Cross didn't score. And, Riverside scored the final 5 points to take that 4-point halftime lead. But what was surprising was, when you looked at the first half stat sheet, Nico Antonacci at 2 points or at 3 points. And he had 1 field goal. missed his first 9 shots. He scored right before he scored, from underneath the basket right before the end of the half. So, I mean, Holy Cross was doing a really good defensive job on him, but then he just came out in the third quarter and he just took charge. He scored. He finished with 30 points. He had 27 in the second half. He had 19 of Riverside's 29 points in the third quarter, and before you knew it, it was like a close game turned into a bit of a blowout and everything. So he just decided to take charge. His teammates, looked for him. He had a couple of big shots, took the ball to the basket. Like he said, he wasn't as aggressive maybe in the first half that he should have been. He tried to be a little bit more aggressive and go get the ball a little bit more, and even some of the shots he took and hit, he had 2 guys on him. He off balance, off a drive or something like that. And, at one point, I think he stepped over the half court line, stopped, launched a 3 and swished it, and everything.
Yeah.
And, so it was it was a good, and I don't, I want to point out, it wasn't just Nico either. In the first half, Braden Rose had I think 11 of Riverside's first 15 points. So he had a big game. Mikey Schimmelfinnig was diving all over the floor, loose balls, knocking, making steals, knocking the ball away and everything like that. I think he had, 6 assists, like I said, a couple of steals. He just was all over the place. So it just wasn't, Riverside, they're just not Nico Antonacci. They got a good group of players, and they're going to be, tough to beat on given nights.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to also give a shout out to Carter Slode of Dunmore. He hit 13 3-pointers and scored 56 points in 3 wins, which improved Dunmore to 7-0. He had 14 points in a 65-34 win over Montrose, 19 points with 5 threes in a 59-45 win over Lakeland, and 23 points with 6 threes in an 86-57 win over Mount Carmel. Nice start for Dunmore, Scotty.
Yeah, they're 7-0 going into the. I'm not sure if they have a game beforehand, but going into the Liner tournament,
right?
I think I tell you right now that they're in Division II. How I was talking about Division I in the girls. I think Division II in boys is going to be a war.
Yeah.
You've got Riverside, you've got Dunmore, you've got Holy Cross, you've got Old Forge. It's those teams are going to be be at each other and everything like that. And I'd circle January 6th on the calendar. That is the first matchup between Dunmore and Riverside. Dunmore's got a high scoring team. You could see, you mentioned the game against Mount Carmel. They had 86 points they scored.
Points, yep.
And that's without the shot clock.
Right.
I mean, so who knows that Dunmore Riverside game that could be like a 102-101 game or something.
Seriously.
It's so that's going to be an entertaining game. They meet that first time on January 6th at Riverside and everything. So so the Division II is going to be a fun watch in the boys this season.
Absolutely. And taking a look at the boys' top 10, we've got Riverside at number 1, Valley View at number 2, who's obviously, they've had a really nice start to the season. We mentioned Dunmore is number 3. Scranton Prep is sitting at number 4. Another team that, as you had mentioned on the girls' side, that's playing some tough conference games, going to tournaments. And Abington Heights is at number 5, Old Forge at 6, Holy Cross at 7, Delaware Valley 8, Lackawanna Trail 9, and Elk Lake at 10. Scotty, anything else you want to say about boys basketball before we move on?
No, I just again, I think it's it's setting as I said with the girls, you got a lot of good players back, a lot of good teams, and it's just going to be it's going to be entertaining night after night. And I know it sounds cliche, any team could beat any given team. You can.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see that. I don't think you're going to see teams a team in Division II maybe go undefeated. Obviously we're Division I is going to be tough with Prep and Abington. They're probably the two. But DV is in that mix as well and everything, and Division III, Trail's got looks like Trail's got a nice team. Elk Lake's got a nice team. They looks like that's going to, that's going to be, be a battle there in Division III for boys. So again, just I guess we just, it makes our jobs fun covering these games and these
Yeah,
teams, and hopefully makes entertains the fans, and they enjoy it, and get out and watch some pretty good basketball.
absolutely. Because it's already been fun. It's only going to get better. We got holiday tournaments coming up. We've got, we'll enter the meat of the league seasons after the holidays. So a lot of great stuff coming up. But Scotty, some teams that are off to fast starts and in basketball, but college are University of Scranton Lady Royals and the men as well. Scotty, talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, well, you kind of expected the Lady Royals.
Yep.
They've been a Division III power the last couple of years, reaching the Lead Eight. They came into the season, ranked number 2 in the country, and they still, that's where they still are in both polls, in the D3hoops.com poll, and the women's the WBCA, the Women's Basketball Coaches Association top 25 poll. And they're just they just come out, and they just, they've got a good balanced offense. They smother you with defense. Yesterday, or Sunday I should say, that they won. They beat Penn State Harrisburg, holding them to Harrisburg to like 28 points or something like that. I think it was 74-28 was the final. So they, and of course, I don't know how much on the podcast you and Joby talked about, of course they had that big win over Division I Pitt, and everything that made them the talk of Division III basketball a couple of weeks ago, all over social media. So you kind of figured them, they're off to an 11-0 start. They're going to be idle now until the Landmark Conference will ramp up after the holidays. The men have been a pleasant surprise. They got a young team. Last 2 seasons haven't been that great for them, but they're 9-1. Their only loss was they lost to defending Landmark Conference champion Drew. But they've got a nice little influx of younger players. Sammy Tornabene, who's a sophomore. Last year he was the Landmark Rookie of the Year. He's off. He's off to a great start. For the second straight week, he was the Landmark Conference Athlete of the Week in men's basketball. Over the weekend, Scranton won the tournament. It wasn't really winning a tournament, Dave, because it wasn't a true where the two teams that won Friday met on Saturday in a final. But they won both their games down at a tournament down at York College. And Tornabene had 30 points and 13 rebounds against Nazareth on Saturday. So it's they've got some veteran leadership in senior point guard John Spatola, and as I mentioned, they've got a nice little influx of some younger players who have really stepped up and done the job too, and also can't forget it. Abington Heights graduate Will Marion, who's a sophomore.
Yeah.
He's been a contributor as well for them. So it's nice to see that for years the Royals were they were Division III basketball. They were one of the top teams in Division III basketball, and so it's nice to see them maybe getting back maybe back to that level after a couple of tough years. And they're idle now. They'll play. I think they come back and they play a non-conference game against Kings, and then they'll kick into high gear with the Landmark Conference and everything. So some good things happening up at the Long Center on the University of Scranton campus.
Absolutely. There's one of our Athlete of the Week candidates that I actually forgot to mention. I'm staring at him right now. Lucas Iannone, Scranton Prep swimming. I guess speaking of college sports,
speaking of the University of Scranton,
Yeah.
on the campus of the University of Scranton, yeah.
All right,
Prep swims and everything.
We turned it into a good segue. I'll take it.
Smooth,
yeah,
Jeff.
Right. Lucas set a Byron Complex pool record in the 200 individual medley with the time of 1 minute 54.78 seconds, being the previous mark set by the United States Merchant Marine Academy's Teague Mayer in 2024. He also won the 100 fly. Prep won that meet over Valley View, 111-13. He also had 2 individual wins and 2 relay wins and a 94-37 win over Holy Cross. So I just wanted to mention that. Scotty, I think we're doing a great job because we're almost out of time. But I did want to mention we rolled out a lot of all-region teams last week, the last 2 weeks, actually. As far as soccer goes, just quickly, Lilia Calvert, obviously, on the girls' side, she got her third Times-Tribune Player of the Year. She's also the state Player of the Year according to the Pennsylvania Coaches Association. I again can't say enough about her. But also Sophia Getter of Mid-Valley, she's going to Ohio State. She was an all-region, named the United Soccer Coaches all-region midfielder. And obviously she was on the all-region team as well. And also on the boys' side, Nico Bustos of Abington Heights was named United Soccer Coaches all-region midfielder. And he got his second straight Times-Tribune Player of the Year honor. Definitely earned it, leading that team to a state title and coming up clutch in the postseason. So congratulations to them. Probably next week I'll talk to Joby a little bit more about his all-region football offense and defense, but his offensive player of the year was Isaac Ryan of Lackawanna Trail. No surprise there. Had an absolutely massive season and a massive career, setting LIA record along the way. And on defense, the player of the year was Cole West of North Pocono. This kid did it all this year. Wasn't just defensively, but just a great all-around player. Scotty, I don't know if you want to touch on your all-region golf and cross country, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously golf, obviously when you Cole Powell, state champion, was our boys golf player of the year. That was a kind of an easy selection when you win a state title and everything.
Certainly.
So and there were three of his teammates on the team as well. Again, Scranton Prep repeating as the state the state team champion in golf. So congratulations to them. Maybe just kind of touching up who else was on the who else was on the team. We had Kyle Connor from Riverside, Ryan Boyd from Abington Heights, and Chase Rosenkrantz from Lakeland. The other Scranton Prep players were Ben Boyanowski, Brendan Bell, and Guy Rothery. So congrats to them making it. And then our girls golf player of the year was Lila Jones. She repeated as the girls player of the year. And then there were the three players from Abington Heights, Brianna Moffitt, Liz George, Kate Peters made it, along with Allie Legg from Montrose and Jones's North Pocono teammate Julia Bico. So congrats to them. And then in cross country, we had repeat winners. Kendall Jones won his second from Elk Lake, won his second straight runner of the year, boys runner of the year, 4-time all-region selection. And then on the boys' side, and then on the girls' side, Anna Pusilowski, third 3-time runner of the year for girls, 4-time all-region selection. They headlined that squad. So it's congratulations to those athletes for receiving those honors, and the others as well who made the all-region team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've officially put fall season to bed.
I think finally. Well, yesterday was the first official day of winter. I think. So
right.
I think we finally can say enough of the fall. We're done. It's great fall season. In all across the board in all the sports and everything. But it's over. It's time to move forward into and look ahead to the winter sports.
Exactly. The winter,
and start thinking about all region. Who's going to be on the all region teams in the winter sports?
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Obviously, winter and spring have a lot to live up to after the fall. But well, all right. I think that just about covers it. We've hit the 1 hour mark. I want to thank Ayden Blaut, Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, for joining us at the top of the episode. And we're obviously getting into, holiday tournaments, not just in basketball, but in wrestling as well. So keep following along. I know that Christmas is on Thursday, but we'll be around. Follow us. Go to our website, thetimes-tribune.com/sports. Follow us on X at SportsTT. Follow our Instagram and Facebook pages, Times-Tribune Sports. Follow Joby's Facebook page, who always shares everything, at least high school, Joby Fawcett, the Times-Tribune. And follow Scott Walsh and his Scott Spots. There were a few last week, obviously. It gives a short breakdown of the games. And yeah, other than that, Scotty, I also want to thank you for joining me, filling in for Joby Fawcett. It's always nice to have you. I know that after this, we'll simply go from talking here to talking on our Google Meet. So I'll say goodbye for now, and thanks so much for joining me, my friend.
No problem. My pleasure. Glad to do it. Always glad to appear on here, and just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holiday season, and looking forward to another good sports year in 2026.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, everyone, like you said, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Dill's got a good team every